Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Trainz Simulator, Trainz 2019. Today we'll be taking a look at the K&L Southern Railway PS-4 462 Pacifics. These were the locomotives made famous by the Southern's Crescent Limited express services. These locomotives were built for express services. The first batch rolled out in around 1923, I believe. Second batch in 1926. And these remained in service until the end of steam on the Southern Railroad and the Southern Railway by the 50s. I believe Diesels took over on the Southern in the mid-50s, and all but one of these locomotives were scrapped. One is preserved by the Smithsonian Institute. It sits down in their basement with, to my knowledge, no chance whatsoever of it ever being operable again, but at least one is preserved. But yeah, these locomotives are very well known across the train community, even across the pond, overseas in Europe and whatnot. Many people have heard of, seen, or own a model of these locomotives. Model railroading made these very popular, and then of course, as one can tell, the bright colors make them stand out, make them a little bit popular, make them a little bit different, especially for the United States, where by this time period the locomotives are typically black with no real fresh color to them. But from what I hear tell, this color scheme is inspired by the LNER overseas. The man that came up with this color scheme had gone on a visit to Europe and was impressed by the green paint scheme of the LNER and came back and applied it for the Southern Railway's special trains. And unfortunately, I believe the PS-4 is the only locomotive left in the United States that still wears this green. Makes me a little bit sad. The 282, the preserved 282, it wore green for a bit during its excursion time. Southern 630, a 280, I believe, 630 it was, also wore the green during its excursion service. But the PS4s are what's known for this green as far as the US goes, and it's an impressive model, especially in trains. From the K&L pack, you will receive 3 different locomotives and 3 different consists. Replicating the original Crescent Limited, the modified, and then the late Crescent Limited whenever World War, Great Depression and World War cost cutting kind of killed it down a good bit, which is what we have here. We have the 1930s Crescent Limited right here. This should be the modernized locomotive with Pullman standard green heavyweights. This would have been the standard view, and then hop back here, and we got kind of our mid with the Crescent Limited lettering, the two-tone green, real pretty cars. But the Great Depression really put an end to this right here, and then as delivered, which is, well, Pullman green still. These are all custom cars. These are not just simple reskins. So there's a lot of work that went into this pack. I remember we were all watching this, waiting on this, because this was a big pack, and it's a very big pack. You will get the early version of the locomotive here. Changes are more mechanical. They're not readily noticeable, and I'm not going to try to sit here and point out all the different changes. There are some odd little things you'll notice, like the tender deck here that's raised as opposed to like over here with our modernized version. It doesn't really show, but one of the biggest noticeable differences between the first early batches of the PS4s and then the later models was the very first locomotives came with Baker valve gear, which is not readily distinguishable to the average eye to Walschaerts valve gear. Walschaerts valve gear is what is typically seen on modern preserved steam locomotives. You see that Union Pacific's big locomotives, they're big preserved locomotives. It's a very popular design that it's a popular design. It survived very well into the preservation era, so that's typically what people see, but there are others that are very similar, and one of the bigger competitors to the Walschaerts valve gear was the Baker valve gear, which I found kind of unusual that Southern didn't opt to use their own. Southern Railway had designed their own valve gear, which is known as Southern valve gear, which is very distinguishable on K&L's 280s. You can see that design, but I do kind of find it surprising that the Southern didn't opt to try using their own valve gear first. But you know, Baker valve gear to start with, and Walschaerts valve gear later on. Locomotives were modified for Walschaerts or built from the factory with Walschaerts. I don't entirely know, but it got changed later on. But it's something that I'm really not going to go over too much. I don't entirely know the biggest differences myself. I'm not that well versed. Just do take note. That is one of the differences, I do believe, between these models. So there are a few good animations that you can find on Google of Baker valve gear that might help point out the differences. It's one of the big notable mechanical differences. These locomotives are built very similar to the USRA Pacifics, but not identical. They're not perfect copies. They have different size drive wheels. They have I believe, a longer boiler, if I remember correctly. The boiler is slightly longer. They have a different firebox, and of course you feed water heaters. So it's a very similar but not quite perfect copy. Let's see, I gotta pull up. Oh, yeah. No, is it gonna work? Come on. There it goes. So, yeah, like I said, detail-wise, the details are going to change. Minor cosmetics that'll be readily noticeable, and then mechanical that's not readily noticeable between each era. So, like, our tender design here changes a little bit, locomotive to locomotive. That's probably one of the most readily noticeable items. Our number board changes. We got a red number board here, and the earlier models, they got a black. Whoops. And we got a green on the the intermittent. Our details will change. Our lettering changes. As delivered, we got the Southern without the moon up on front, and our Mid-era, we got the Crescent Limited with the Crescent moons. And then those were removed again for this. Yeah. So let's see. As is typical with K&L products, there's usually a few things you can fiddle with. So just about all K&L products have the option for automatic firemen, headlights, high beams. But you also get the option for running to your ladders. Boink. Check it out. Headlight visors. Puts a hood over the headlight versus the sunbeams here. Candlesticks. Now what the Southern uses these for, I actually have no honest clue. On earlier locomotives, the candlesticks, these would have sat typically more out in a more visible place, and instead of marker lights, you would have had marker flags on the little candlesticks. But yeah, it's an option. And then the eagle, just above the headlight, and then your division. It'll add it fine lettering just down here: Asheville, Atlanta, Birmingham, Charlotte, Washington, and Winston-Salem. Cab doors can be opened, and it will start with opening this little window right here. So, little window opens when the door opens. And then, of course, fireman's side, and then the roof vent. And all of these locomotives will have these options, so, and I believe it's the same options across all of them. Yeah, so the same options. They'll all have the same sounds. No sounds have changed between the locomotives. Same whistle, bell, chuff sounds, all that fun stuff. So I'm not going to take the time to click through each and every one of these locomotives. We're going to take the modernized version here on our sound test. I love the hood. Little details like this will change too. Like I said, like red up under a hood here. I am personally by no means an expert on the PS4, so I would not. I couldn't sit here and tell you guys all the little differences that changed. I just know basic stuff that just about every Steam nerd knows about the PS4s. I haven't really studied these all that much. These locomotives never would have stepped foot in Texas, so it's not one that I've ever paid a whole lot of attention to. I mean, younger me was baffled with the green. I love the green. I still do. I still think it's a gorgeous paint scheme. I never really took the time to look into these locomotives all that much. I never bothered to look into Southern all that much past their Steam program when they still were effectively renting our 610. But so I couldn't sit here and tell you guys all the differences. Best I can say is to do a little bit of research. Do your due diligence. Headlights are pretty typical for K&L. You know, they're not too bad. I think they're a little white. They're a little too white. But other than that, they're not bad looking. Just for giggles and squiggles. Open it all. It's a nice day. Why not? So, bell. The bell is animated. Pretty good sounding bell, and it is in sync, which is really nice. It's a nice One of those minor details that one doesn't always notice, but you appreciate it when you catch it. Even the little pump arm here is animated, which is really cool. And it does reset, which is nice. And then, of course, our whistle. Pretty nice sounding whistle, I will say. Nice and loud, nice and deep. I like it. I don't believe that the whistle is animated though. No. Sad days there. I believe, yeah, these also have a custom cab for those of you that are into that. I always end up saying it, but I personally don't care for cabs and trains. But it does have a custom cab for those of you that run custom, or those of you that run from the cabin trains, which it does look pretty well done. I think the black is a little bit washed out, but other than that, it does look pretty good. It's fairly well detailed. So, you know, for those of you that get their kicks off of it. These do have a mechanical stoker. I'm curious to see if it operates. It does. Not something you can really see all that often, but it does have a mechanical stoker, and the mechanical stoker does work. No real effective way to see it outside of the linkage right here. But it is cool to notice. It's one of those, you know, one of those nice details. Anything on the car? Nope. Tender can't change. And then of course our cars, because these do have a custom train set built for them. So right off we got our railway post office here. There we go. Here's our first view. I have no honest clue how you change views on trains, but they do have modeled interiors, which is pretty nice. I think the green inside is a little bright, but not bad. And of course we'll have our kind of a what do you call it, combo, a baggage combine with some people inside, and we get into the meat and potatoes. Chair cars that are all detailed inside. I think the windows are a little bit foggy in my opinion. They're kind of, I don't know if he did that on purpose, but I think they kind of looked a little washed out, especially when you look over here in the what should be the shadows. I've got my shadows turned off, but over here it's very clearly noticeable what's inside, as opposed to you look over here and it's like very whitewashed, washed out. Each car is named, which is cool. They do have, I believe they have dynamic name and numbering for the cars that would have been used on the Crescent Limited, so they're not just, you know, random. We got our dining car here. Again, pretty well detailed. You know, welcome to a Denny's, an old-fashioned Denny's. Another kind of chair, another chair. An observation car with the Crescent Limited plaque on the back. A nice platform view. we kind of end up inside the inside the car here. I don't believe you can really change anything on any of the cars, but they do have views and very well done interiors, nicely detailed. Yeah. And then you'll get this entire train set again, but it'll backdate it a little bit. This will be your kind of mid run. So two-tone green, Crescent Limited, and gold. Same cars, just a different paint scheme. And then we get the early train set, which again, same cars. Which yeah, these are the consists that you'll get. It's only two actual sets of cars: the Pullman green and then the Crescent Limited two-tone. But you'll get 3 different consists. So let's take it down the rails. Oogly boogly boogly boo. Jump back up to the locomotive. Be sure our tracks are set and cool. Shuff sounds are nothing special. K&L typical shuff sounds, which they're not bad, but they can get a little bit old if you've got a bunch of K&L products. I believe all of his southern locomotives use this exact same shuff sound, so if you've got them all down in the same place, it might get a little annoying. So I would say you might want to look around for some shuff sounds to kind of mix things up. His shuff sounds are good. It's just using it on everything might get old. So nothing special with the shuff sounds. They're pretty typical. The smoke is a little bit odd. I don't know what's going on with that. It looks, I don't know, the particles don't look half bad. It just looks like it's struggling to keep up. The cars do have their own kind of sounds, which is nice. Pretty good looking locomotive to watch in operation. We're gonna kind of forget the speed limit for a little bit here. Let it run. Come up here and get us a run by. Now you can hear this thing a long way away, which is kind of nice. You know, I feel like too often we end up with locomotives that are just entirely too quiet. What do we got? We got 67 miles an hour. I believe on average these locomotives would run between 70, 75. I don't think these were quite the 100-mile-an-hour sprinters that a good many other express locomotives were for US, but I believe these would still pick up and run pretty quick. I don't think I ever saw in my research where my quick 5-minute research where what these locomotives would have ran at on average, but looks like we top off at 85 using our little dial here, which is pretty believable. That's pretty believable. It's fun to watch these locomotives fly by. Now, I will say the squealing can get a little bit old because it's constant. It doesn't kind of come and go. Let's take it to 0. So we got a pretty decent slowdown. You know, we're not coming to an immediate stop. So a lot of earlier train stuff is known for. Take it to 0 and it stops right then and there. Yeah, that is squealing. The squealing from the cars can get a little bit old because it's a bit loud and it's just constant. It doesn't have a nice, you know, kind of randomness to it. Kind of come and go, squeal here, squeal there, clickety clack, you know, typical ambient sounds. It's just a constant squeal. So I think that could potentially rack on your nerves a little bit after a while. And there it is, fellas. K&L Trainz is Southern PS-4. Awesome pack, well worth checking out, especially if you already have the rest of his Southern content. It's an absolute must-have. But those of you looking for a nostalgia trip, chances are you've had one of these or still have one of these as a model train fan, or probably have an earlier version of something like this, like a kit bash. I know there's a few kit bashes of these available in the Trainz download station, but if you're looking for a high quality pro model and proper matching train set, it is 100% worth checking out. I believe it's $15 on K&L's website. So do go check it out. Of course, link in the description as usual. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time.